I will say this. Wrestling is something that truly gives my life purpose. Like, when I wake up, I feel fortunate that I wake up because I can do something that helps me pursue wrestling, whether that's in the gym or whether that's studying wrestling or keeping up with what the bigger promotions are doing or keeping up with what the independent promotions are doing, because I one day have aspirations to work there. Like, wrestling has fulfilled a big life purpose for me.
And welcome to another episode of the Project Get to Know podcast. My name is Emmanuel, and we have such a legacy Texas wrestler here on the episode, and he is the living proof. We have Jastin Taylor here on the program. I love that flag behind you, but it was so nice to have a conversation with you on this episode.
Hey, it's great to be here, Emmanuel, and thanks again for inviting me. I'm excited. The living proof flag is in the background, and I am ready to go.
So, before I even want to delve into conversation, there was a video that I saw while I was doing research, and it starts off as Charlie Haas, Matt Hardy, Billy Gunn, and this was your promo for the Tough Enough tryouts. And what was that Jastin Taylor like at the time when this promo was out on the WWE YouTube page?
Wow. You pulled something from years and years and years ago. So, man, a much different Jastin Taylor than the Jastin Taylor that is before you now. But to describe it, that might have been, oh man, that might have been somewhere around 7 or 8 years ago. And at the time I was filming, I was in a ring for Old School Wrestling, which was a local promotion here in West Texas that was started by my dearly departed friend, Fred Urban. OSW has a rich history. It's one of the promotions that has been credited with sort of reigniting the flame of West Texas wrestling in this area. Fred went on to have a lot of successful shows, and part of that success was me, Jastin Taylor. I actually was the company's champion for quite a bit during that initial run. And during that run, I faced guys like Matt Hardy, Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin. So when the Tough Enough and for a moment, WWE at the time was doing these Tough Enough tryout videos. And every now and then, if they thought your promo was good enough, it would show up on TV. Well, I'm at least proud to say, even though I wasn't unfortunately picked for the Tough Enough at the time, that promo that you're watching did make it to WWE TV. It actually played on Monday Night Raw along with a group of other Tough Enough tryout videos. And they wouldn't even put it on Raw unless they felt like you actually had something meaningful to say. So a bit of an honor. You might even say that was one of my first appearances on Monday Night Raw, was actually that Tough Enough video. But yeah, I was just a Jastin still wet behind the ears, but a Jastin that was motivated, a Jastin that was determined, and a Jastin that thought if he name dropped a few superstars that he had been in the ring with, maybe WWE would look his way.
You faced them, and if you mentioned them, you name dropped them, you faced them in the ring on the indies. And one of the more interesting aspects of that too is, what was like your favorite match facing out of those three guys? And Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin, Billy Gunn, and Matt Hardy.
Man, out of those, it's definitely going to be Matt Hardy. I think that, and here's the interesting thing about Matt. I'm going to pull the curtain back for a little bit to have this conversation, but it's a good conversation to have. So basically at that time, Matt Hardy came in, and the week before that match, because the match was scheduled, but Matt Hardy did kind of a seminar with me and some of the other guys for Old School Wrestling. And all of this happened in Odessa, Texas. And so he ran a seminar and he got to see us operate in the ring, got to see how we moved, got to see how we wrestle and everything like that. So, and the seminar went fairly well. He had good things to say about a bunch of us that were there that night. And all in all, we just said, all right, we'll reconvene whenever it's showtime. So on the day of the show, he's in the locker room and I walk up to him. And, obviously, Matt Hardy, I don't need to explain or describe what kind of superstar he is. He was fresh at this time, though. He was fresh off of WWE TV. So he had taken that little bit of a break and was kind of working the indies. And this was just before he landed in TNA Wrestling and ROH and did a couple of the other things that he did. And this was a little bit before um before he started doing the sort of the crazy Matt Hardy gimmick with the delete and all of that kind of stuff. So this was like an in-between period of that. So anyway, I walk up to him in the locker room and he goes, "Hey man, what is the time limit on this match?" And I said, "Well, we've got an hour time limit, but of course, Matt, we don't have to go the time limit." And he said, "Well, what do you think about going the time limit tonight?" And I was like,
Wow.
wait, what do you mean? Like the hour? Like I was so blown away by the statement. I was like, are you talking about wrestling an hour? And all these things are running through my head like, bro, like you're fresh off of WWE TV. You're in this we're in this random town in Odessa. Um, do you really want to wrestle me an hour? I just was sitting here thinking, why would he even want to do this? Like, it blew my mind that he even suggested that. And what he said to me, I will never forget. And it's something that I really hold dear to this day. He said, I wouldn't suggest this and I wouldn't ask this of you unless I really felt like you could handle this. And after working with you the other day and after seeing you at the seminar, and I've watched some of your matches, man, and the promo that you did against me was good. I know you're capable of this. I know you have this in you. And I wouldn't ask you to do this if I didn't have faith that you could do this. And that's all I needed to hear. And I said, okay, sir. I guess we're going the hour then. And sure enough, we wrestled 55 minutes to a time limit draw.
Wow.
And then there was even post-match stuff after it was over. We wrestled to a time limit draw. Of course, Matt, I was the heel at the time. Matt Hardy was the babyface, obviously coming in. And he was like, hey, Jastin, we wrestled an entire hour. I mean, come on, Jastin. We got to give these people 5 more minutes. We got to give them a winner. There needs to be a winner tonight. And me being the sort of chicken, what heel at the time, I was like, look, man, I don't get paid by the hour. You had 55 minutes to beat me and you couldn't do it.
That's cool.
I'm going home. So obviously I was about to pack my belt up and go. And he threw me in the ring, gave me a twist of fate. The crowd popped. It was a big night for both of us. And that's sort of how the shenanigans ended. But yeah, last thing I'll say about it, I'll never forget Matt Hardy for that. I'll never forget that experience. It was a great match. I really learned a lot about calling it in the ring and especially how to tell a story that long in the back. And afterwards, the respect that I had for the locker room at the time, the respect that people had for me in the West Texas area, that was a match that truly solidified me in the West Texas area. So that will always be my favorite independent match. And I will never forget Matt Hardy for giving me that experience.
He threw a bone at you at that point, and seeing there's something that has potential and knowing that he could have said no, but seeing something that has that potential, Matt saw something, and he could have been it could have been 30 minutes, but to push you within that hour of that match, and knowing that Matt gave you such a huge ovation from not only him but everyone who watched and in the locker room. It must have been a very much revitalizing time because you're grinding like everyone else, but to have that nod from Matt Hardy to say, "Let's go push this to the limit," and you were basically over the top whenever that moment happened.
Yeah. And it's very rare that something like that happens because normally if two guys are going to do that, that's normally a match that's advertised. Normally if
Mhm.
guys are going to go to 30 minutes or go to an hour, that's something you normally advertise, or you say, hey, these guys are going to wrestle an hour, they're going to do an Iron Man or whatever the case may be. But to just on the cuff, on the fly, no initial warning, him just go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go an hour with you. It's unheard of. And so
Yeah.
it was such an honor that he did that. And the fact that he then to put that confidence in me beforehand and say, I believe in you. I know that you can do this. And I wasn't a great friend of his. There was no family history. I'm not
Hmm.
somebody who has been signed and that he knew or anything like that. He just watched me work and said, I know you can do this. And that is
Yeah.
just so cool, man. It's just one of the most dearest experiences I've had in professional wrestling.
It's not just a WWE that kind of put everyone on notice on what you're doing. Ring of Honor, as much as it is, I always say this in every aspect because I grew up in the East Coast, so Ring of Honor was kind of like the king of the indies, even to this day. And though I'm covering stuff here in Texas, and each will have its own place in the country, Ring of Honor kind of took notice on you on that tryout. And run us through how that tryout came to be, and we'll talk about Future of Honor and how that kind of came to be after your tryout.
Sure, sure. So that was around 20, I want to say either 2015, 2016, that was somewhere around in there. And this is a chance for me to put over a guy that's near and dear to me that used to work for Ring of Honor. Brutal
Mm.
Bob Evans. Yeah,
Oh my
so Bob,
god, that's right.
yeah, yeah, I know you know who Bob is. People call
Oh
him
my
Uncle
god.
Bob. People, Bob Evans is somebody who is always trying to give back to pro wrestling. I don't know if anybody out there follows him but if you're a wrestler, you should probably follow him, whether it be on Facebook, Instagram, because he's always posting motivating things, encouraging things. He's often going around and doing seminars and everything like that. Well, I met Bob when he did a seminar for another West Texas promotion that's pretty prominent in this area, Rampage Wrestling. So that's how I met Brutal Bob. And we did a seminar. He took a liking to me. And after the seminar was over, he sort of pulled me to the side and he was like, hey, man, there's no doubt in my mind that you're the best guy that I've seen here. And he
Mhm.
said, I just want to keep an eye on you. I want to give you a follow. And there's going to be some seminars coming up that I'm going to be doing with Hunter Johnson, Delirious, and Cheeseburger, and some other guys from
Yeah.
Ring of Honor. And I would like you to make it out to one of those if you can. Well, I kept in touch with them. And I found out that there was a seminar in Warwick, Rhode Island, which is a long way from Texas. We're talking about booking a flight. I wasn't about to drive no 20 hours to Rhode Island or whatever it is. So anyway, I made it happen. I grinded at work, did the overtime. If you're somebody in wrestling who travels, you know all about that. Sometimes you got to put back money and you got to eat your lunch, if you know what I'm saying, and make and travel and do the miles or whatever. Well, saved up the money, went to that seminar in Warwick, Rhode Island, and long story short, it was a great seminar. I impressed Delirious and I impressed Cheeseburger. And so they just kept an eye on me and they said, well, whenever Ring of Honor comes back through Texas, give us a shout. and we'll see if we can make something happen. And sure enough, those guys kept their word. There was a Ring of Honor show that came through San Antonio. I showed up there and Cheeseburger said, hey, let me work him. We had a 10-minute
Wow.
match for Ring of Honor, and it was a great match. It's another match that I hold near and dear to my heart. You can look up Jastin versus Cheeseburger on YouTube and find that match for anybody that might be viewing or listening to this. And it was another match that I hold near and dear to my heart. Cheeseburger was great, and I made another impression for Ring of Honor.
Because like the future of honors here, what's nice too, it's not just the usual guys. At the time, it was like Samoa Joe or anyone who's already having in that main roster, but for the guys who are rising at the time. And how was your place within Future of Honor really just propel you into something that's a bit bigger than where you were at on the Indies?
Well, definitely, even though, obviously when you do something like that, the hope is, well, maybe I'll get signed or maybe I'll be it. And at the time, there was a Future of Honor tournament. And then
Hmm.
that led to a Future of Honor series. So anybody that was on the Future of Honor series, you may get picked to work on the Future of Honor tournament. And there were some people that came out of that and were pretty popular, like Dak Draper. He was one of the people who was a Future of Honor and a prospect and was able to win that prospect tournament.
Hmm.
I never, unfortunately, got to work any of those prospect tournaments or anything like that. But the cool thing about those matches is that when the Ring of Honor shows, DVDs for those shows came out, I'm on the DVD. So if you order that show that happened in San Antonio, and I think it was something like the state of, man, I forget what the name of the show was. It was like the Lone Star something Ring of
Hmm.
Honor show. But if you order that DVD, I'm on there. It says Jastin versus Cheeseburger on disc one or whatever. And so it was the coolest thing ever that the match was good enough that they added me to their DVD content. I got a lot of good matches in the indies because of that match. It definitely improved my stock when you talk about Texas wrestling. Different people started looking at me. Those videos for Ring of Honor, they kept it on their site. It got thousands of views and it opened eyes up for me as far as, hey, who is this Jastin Taylor guy? And I was very fortunate to have that notoriety for the little time that I had it after that match.
It's cool seeing that match with Cheeseburger, and it's like that time you were running on all cylinders. And I'm curious because you mentioned Rhode Island being a destination. Like, what was the furthest that you've ever traveled working in an indie show? Whether it's here in the U.S., Canada, Mexico, or some other country, like what was the furthest that you've done?
It would definitely be Canada.
Okay.
That's probably the furthest I've ever gone. So the furthest I've ever gone is out of the country. So I can say that I'm one of those guys who has wrestled internationally, which is something that, a lot of aspiring wrestlers want to do. And of course, anybody that's looking to make something in wrestling, there are places that you want to go. And Canada has such a rich wrestling history. I don't
Mhm.
need to probably describe to you or explain to anybody who's a wrestling fan, guys who continue to be a success from Canada and people who have come out of Canada. I mean, obviously the Hart Foundation,
Mhm.
the dungeon. That's where the dungeon started and that's where it was. So obviously the Harts, Davy Boy Smith,
Mhm.
so many great wrestlers that have come out of Canada, Chris Jericho, like, I mean, the list goes on and on. So Canada has always been a place that I've wanted to work. And some years ago, I got to do that. I got to go there, to CWE, Canadian Wrestling Elite, Danny Duggan. A lot of wrestlers, I'm sure, are familiar with that name. He's a
Yep.
promoter that constantly does tours in Canada. So it was a great honor getting to go down there and wrestle there for those fans. Those fans are passionate about wrestling and they follow wrestling. There were fans there in Canada that knew who I was the moment they saw me. Oh, yeah, I follow you. I saw your match against
Wow.
Cheeseburger. I saw your podcast where you review movies, et cetera, et cetera. There were guys there that already knew who I was. So it was such a huge honor and it was amazing. And I had an amazing time. Some of the food I had down there was great. And just a wonderful experience overall that I had in Canada.
This is where it leads us to you having the living proof as your nickname too, because traveling all over the continental North America at this point and having this name of the living proof, like to know that you've traveled all of these places, Texas especially, how did that moniker of you having the living proof really just magnify and personify not only you as a wrestler but as a person?
Wow. Well, great question. Great question. And I love talking about this. So the interesting thing is that, and maybe if you're a wrestler that's early in your career, or if you just, or maybe you're a vet now, but you remember early in your career. And one of the toughest things about wrestling for many of us is just finding that niche, right? Finding that persona, finding who are you in this crazy world of wrestling? Because it's never enough to just be a wrestler, right? You gotta be someone. You have to stand for something. There has to be some meaning to what you're doing in the ring. And a lot of that is your identity, right? Your persona. What do you represent? Who are you in the world of wrestling? And that was a big struggle for me for a long time. And randomly, one day, sometimes you just have a light bulb moment when it comes to creativity or when it comes to finding something sometimes. And my light bulb moment came. I was randomly watching a movie. I think the name of the movie was The Help. And at the end of the
Oh.
film, okay, you're familiar with that movie, yes.
Yes.
And,
I
and
perked up. I
so
was like, wait. Go ahead.
and so you're like, I know that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not a bad film, right? Not a bad film. And at the end of the movie, a singer, Mary J. Blige, I'm sure people know who that is. A lot of people might know who that is, a very prominent singer in the 90s and early 2000s. But she was singing this song during the end credits. And the name of the song was I'm Living Proof. And
Mhm.
so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the lyrics as she's singing. And somehow that just caught my attention. And she's sitting there talking in this song about how she's gone through all these trials and tribulations. And people said that, she wouldn't make it through. And sometimes life beat down on her. And when it seemed like she wasn't going to make it, she persevered and she kept fighting and she made it through. And now she can say, look at me. I'm the living proof. And in that moment, I heard that phrase. I heard her singing about her story. And it was like that moment happened. And I remember just sitting back in my chair and going, oh my God, that's my story. That's who I am. I'm the living proof. That's who I am. So I had the name and I knew that was my story because my entire story when it comes to wrestling has been about perseverance. I
Mhm.
am kind of, and I tell people this story often, I am kind of a mutt, I guess you could say, when it comes to my upbringings in professional wrestling. I was just sort of a guy who don't have a prominent trainer that I can name drop and say, oh yeah, this is the veteran or the WWE legend or the family member that trained me. I unfortunately don't have that luxury. I was raised
Mhm.
by just a random locker room of guys in Amarillo, Texas for this promotion called Top of Texas. So I owe my training to just a bunch of guys in the locker room who just showed me the bumps and the bruises of wrestling. And then it took a lot of traveling. It took a lot of seminars. It took a lot of just getting in front of different people and unlearning bad habits and keeping the good ones. So
Mhm.
I've always wrestled with the chip on my shoulder because I don't have that name drop pedigree. So I always feel like I'm in a position where I've got to prove myself. So for me, being the living proof is not just a moniker, it's not just a nickname, but it's a mission. It's
Mm.
it's a promise that I have to live by. It is a phrase that I'm trying to live up to because I want to be able to say, look, I did the three things that I care most about. I believed in myself. I grind every day. And if I do those two things, I can do the third thing, and that's achieve. And if I can do those three things, then maybe I can be that light for somebody else. I can turn around and tell somebody, hey, man, if you have a dream and you want to be happy and you want a goal and you want to accomplish that goal in life, you can do it. And I'm living proof that you can do it. But in order to do that, I got to wake up every day with that purpose. I got to wake up every day to fulfill that moniker and be living proof when it comes to professional wrestling.
I feel like running out of a wall now. It's just like, wow, it's motivating. Because what's interesting, because like your time and because that when you had the time of like going through top of Texas, it was just happenstance. Is that correct? Like, hey, the promo was like, hey, you want to just try out on the spot? Like, was it just happenstance that your wrestling journey started there?
Yes, it really was. Like me and a bunch of friends were just all like we were trampoline wrestlers, you know. We had that same kind of upbringing like Matt and Jeff Hardy and CM Punk, right? We had a little trampoline wrestling promotion where we would film matches and jump around and stuff like that. And one of my friends, who's another prominent West Texas wrestler, Ryan Justice, he found out about this promotion in Amarillo, this independent promotion that ran. And this is going to show my age a little bit, but this was the era of MySpace and stuff like
Mhm.
that. It wasn't like we were connected to this grand network of independent wrestling that exists now. So we were like, oh, there's wrestling there. Let's go. So we drove the 3.5 or 4 hours, whatever it was, me, him, another West Texas wrestler, Jeb Bingham, wild card Jeb Bingham, for those who may be West Texas people who may be listening to this, just so you know those names. We went up there and we were just fans, but we were enthusiastic fans. We were the good fans. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We cheered the baby faces and we booed the heels. We started chants and we were really rowdy and we just, and the wrestlers, they saw how energetic we were. So when they would come out and perform, they fed off of that energy and we really
Mhm.
stood out in the crowd. So after the show was over, and we just had the best time, man. We were just so thrilled to be at a live independent show. It was the first independent show any of us had ever been to. So
Wow.
yeah. So after the show was over, the promoter, Jack Logan, comes out. And he's walking around. And if you don't know who Jack Logan is, he's got a son, Jake Logan, who's pretty prominent in the Florida area, also in the
Mhm.
Texas area. I saw him a lot during WrestleMania week in Vegas. So Jack Logan, the father of Jake Logan. So Jake Logan's a second generation guy.
Mhm.
Anyway, Jack walks up to us and he says, hey, you guys were pretty cool out in the crowd tonight. And we were like, yeah, man, blah, blah, blah. We really enjoyed it. This is our first time and everything. And he took a look at me and he took a look at my friends and he said, the three of you guys look pretty athletic. You got good looks. Have you ever thought
Mhm.
about being professional wrestlers? And my jaw dropped along with my friends, and we're all looking at each other like,
It's your
what?
first show too. It's like it's
Yes.
out of
First
nowhere.
show. Never been to an independent show ever. And it was like, what? Yes, like, it's our dream to do pro wrestling. And he was like, well, how about this? I'll have the wrestlers come out here. I have a few of my guys come out here and we'll let you get in the ring and roll around with them and stuff. So and I'm not making any of this up. I know it sounds kind of like a fantasy, a storybook, a movie or something, but literally guys came out from the locker room, shook our hands. We met some of the nice guys in his locker room. They got in the ring with us. They showed us rolling, and one of them sort of demonstrated how to run the ropes. And on the second try, I was running the ropes
Hmm.
effectively. They were like, what? Like I somehow, I don't know if it was just years of muscle memory from watching wrestling, or maybe I just had a gift and didn't even know it, but they showed me how to run the ropes and I could do it. And all of those wrestlers looked at me and said, you need to come back. Like, you need to come back here and you need to start training with us. I think you might have a gift for this. You might have a
Wow.
knack for this. And that's how my journey started.
Wow, that's just like, and you were just there on your first show as a viewer, and it happened to be there. Like watching in an indie show, and all of us here on this podcast and on these interviews are wrestling fans in one way, shape, or form. How different is it seeing an indie show compared to watching like a Raw or a SmackDown? I'm aging myself, like a Sunday Night Heat or a Saturday Night's main event. Like,
Uh,
what's the difference between watching an indie to something that's a bigger show like in the WWE?
well, definitely I'd say the difference is that, well, for independent shows, and I'm sure a lot of other fans can attest to this too, sometimes independent shows can be infinitely more interactive
Mm-hmm.
than going to like a WWE show or something like that. Now, don't get me wrong, going to a Raw or a SmackDown or a pay per view or a WrestleMania is phenomenal. The lights, the pyro, the spectacle. There's nothing like going to a WWE show, an all elite wrestling show. Those shows, obviously, I've had wonderful experiences going to those shows and being a fan, whether I was there or in the back. I've had great experiences there. But one thing I can say about independent wrestling is how interactive it is. It's one
Mm-hmm.
thing to yell, and that wrestler looks at you in your eyes and reacts to what you say. It's one thing when wrestlers are fighting and they come up against you and say something to you, or one of them shouts off something at you and gets mad, and then they're focusing on you, and then all of a sudden the wrestler that they're wrestling takes advantage of them or rolls them up from behind, and you feel like, ha ha, I was part of the reason why that wrestler didn't win, or whatever the case may
Mm-hmm.
be. There's just something about being there live and having an interactive experience that sometimes with those big thick barricades at when you go to Raw or SmackDown, or sometimes you're up in the nosebleeds looking down at everything, you just don't get that same interactive experience. And
Right.
then and then what's cool about independent shows is sometimes after the show, that star that you watched wrestle on the independents is at a merch table, and you can go up
Mm-hmm.
and talk to them. Or maybe you saw them in the store earlier that day because it's a local guy. Or sometimes there are just experiences that independent wrestling can provide that no other wrestling experience can provide. And I definitely felt that going to an independent show.
What's nice too is, well, we'll talk Texas 8 later. That's going to be part of the discussion. I am going to bring this up. There was a gentleman there before we even had a face to face at the Texas 8. I forgot his name, but he's followed you for such a long time. He went out of his way to go to Austin and watch you be in that Texas 8. To have someone who's basically been with you watching those shows, what was it like for someone to go to a show, to go out of their way and watch you, in this case with the Texas 8?
Oh man, that was yeah, the Texas A was a great experience, and part of that great experience was the guy that you're talking about, John Garcia. So I'll have to give him a shout out and a tag whenever this post goes out and ever I share this. But yeah, John Garcia is a good friend of mine. We were classmates back in Midland High School. Class of 2000, aging myself again a little bit more here. I mean, everybody's going to know the age by the time I'm done with this. But we graduated class of 2000 MHS Bulldogs, baby, in Midland, Texas. And John was also a prominent part of the early beginnings of old school wrestling. John worked for the local news company at the time there in Midland and did a big news story for OSW, interviewed me, interviewed Fred Urban, interviewed some of the other members of the OSW roster at the time. His little his interview and sort of documentary feature that he did on us ran on prime time in Midland and Odessa and was one of the bigger reasons why we were able to raise awareness about our local show. So that's sort of my history with John. And John has always followed me online when he moved over to near the Austin area. So he moved out of the Midland area, but he always followed me. He always kept in touch with me.
Okay.
And it was so great to see him there in Austin supporting me at the Texas 8. And one of the coolest things about that experience was that he came up, he gave me a big hug, and it was like no time had passed. I hadn't seen him in years, and the conversation just picked up like we had only not seen each other in days. And he told me that I had improved so much as a wrestler. He said, "Man, Jastin, you are 10 times the wrestler that you were when I saw you back in
Wow.
Odessa in Midland, Texas. You're so much better. You move so much better. You're in such better shape. You seem motivated. And you've done so much since then. I am so incredibly proud of you, man, and for what you've done with your career in professional wrestling." So it was awesome hearing from him, and it was very awesome of him to say such a thing to me.
Yeah, and I was walking, and you had that conversation going on, and I'm like, let me distance myself, not knowing because I was actually checking out on socials while I was getting ready for the interviews, and that was a picture of John, and it's like seeing how much that someone that shows you relevance in one way, shape, or form. That really must have kept you going because oftentimes in the indies, it's always the grind. You're always there to get your name out there. But for someone to have been with you since 2000 out of all those years, it must have been relieving to know that you are still in the scene in any way that they want to share things with you.
Yes. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that being a pro wrestler or going after your dream or what, and I'm sure people out there can attest to this, whatever you're trying to do, whether it's a goal, a dream, or whatever, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it's not all positivity and motivation. Sometimes it's just a fight to stay motivated. It's a
Hmm.
fight to stay relevant. Wrestling business is show business, which means it can be very brutal at times, and sometimes you can do all the right things and still never quote unquote make it in wrestling. Sometimes you can be just as good as maybe some of the people who are considered some of the best people, but never really get your due. That's a very real
Hmm.
reality when it comes to wrestling as well. And sometimes, man, this can be a struggle. And sometimes the real struggle is not even so much what goes on in wrestling or outside of wrestling, but it's what goes on here in your head and what goes on in your heart. And sometimes you you run the battle. You have to wage that war of telling yourself, "Am I good enough? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should stop doing this. Maybe this is not in the cards for me." Those are constant struggles and constant battles that we're fighting out here. And I'm sure a lot of guys and gals can attest to that in pro wrestling. And over the years, it's been because I've been wrestling for about 14 years. It'll be 15 at the end of this month. And
Right.
sometimes what keeps me going is guys like John, is friendships like that, is people saying, "Man, you look so good, you move so well, man, you're still good at this, you're still motivated, you still are very good after all of these years, you're still having great matches, you haven't declined, you still have something to offer wrestling." So I can't tell you how many times those friendship interactions with John, those fan interactions with people have literally kept me going. Or a kid drawing a picture of me. One time a kid gave me a picture and he said, "I drew this for you, man. You were my favorite
Wow.
wrestler the last time you were here." And it was a picture of me with my flag standing on top of the world. And it's just a picture from this little kid, little stick figures, but man, those things go a long way in keeping
It,
us going. And sometimes it's those interactions that truly make you feel like you're doing something right.
it's not even a lot, but it means so much to you that there is someone who took note of you in one way, shape, or form. And what's nice throughout the years that you're working through the indies, AEW came around. And that's pretty close to the big leagues when it comes to being a professional wrestler and facing Brian Cage in that AEW dark. I think it was dark. It was a dark match, but
Yes.
being so close to the big leagues and knowing that the years that you've grinded for that time, what was that like being part of something within All Elite Wrestling?
Man, that was another great experience. And you're absolutely right. The fact that All Elite Wrestling picked me when they came through El Paso at that time was great because it means that people are aware of you. Eyes are on you. Like to even get picked for something like that, that means that somebody back there had to be looking at you. Somebody had to have looked at your stuff and said, we think that he might be good for this match. And there are people who went on, I know guys who have been to the AEW locker room several times and they haven't been picked to
Right.
do a match. There's no guarantee. Like you can go back there and sit back there the whole time on standby and maybe they don't need you, maybe they do. But it was great that the first time I went, I got to have that match with Brian Cage. Now, it wasn't long, and I'm looking for a run back. I didn't get much in,
I'll tag
but
him. I'll
still,
tag him.
I didn't get much in, so I'm not gonna lie about that part. It wasn't long. He kind of took care of me kind of quicker than I wanted to. But the hope is I will get to run that back. But it was an amazing experience being in there with him. I got some offense off on him, and that was great. That's a video clip of me springing off the rope and hitting
Yes, that's
and
what it
kicking him in
was.
the head. Yes, that is something that is going to always be playing on a Jastin Taylor highlight reel. But it was a great experience, man. I learned a lot being there. I learned a lot from the locker room and seeing how hungry those guys were and how motivated they were and how humble they were. And I ran into Matt Hardy again on that show, and
Hmm.
he had a lot to say to me about, "Man, it's good to see you back here and you're looking good, man, and keep on grinding." And he gave me some motivation when I was back there as well. So it's a great experience. And when you're that close to it, you can almost taste it. You feel like you're doing
Yeah.
something right. And you feel like if you keep grinding, maybe more can come from that. And that's one of the hopes that I hold on to as I continue through professional wrestling.
I saw that match as researching. I was like, it's one of those moments where like, why haven't you? Why hasn't like a TNA or an AEW, WWE to took a chance on you? But to know that you are chasing that dream, and you also have other stuff that you have in your life. How do you manage? How do you manage to walk that tightrope to where you're chasing that dream, but at the same time, I have all of these other things in my life that I have to take care of, in your life.
Man, it's definitely a struggle at times with maintaining that balance from time to time. But I truly, but like I'm kind of not one of those guys that says, "Oh, I'm my dream is to wrestle and I'm doing my dream." And sometimes, you hear that so much that it can sometimes rain hollow when people hear that. Like, isn't it
Yeah,
every wrestler's dream to be doing wrestling and stuff like that? But I will say this: wrestling is something that truly gives my life purpose. Like,
right.
when I wake up, I feel fortunate that I wake up because I can do something that helps me pursue wrestling, whether that's in the gym or whether that's studying wrestling or keeping up with what the bigger promotions are doing or keeping up with what the independent promotions are doing because I one day have aspirations to work there. Like, wrestling has fulfilled a big life purpose for me. And
Hmm.
so when it comes to work, the work that I do, and I feel like I do a good job. I help people. I work for the state and work for the government, also with my local memorial hospital. So I help people get government help to pay their medical bills, and that's
Hmm.
a job that I take very seriously. I'm a what they call a hospital advisor for Midland Memorial, and that's a job that I take very seriously, and I take pride in being able to help my community and help people possibly help the government pay some of their medical bills. It's a very important
Yeah.
job that I have. But but make no mistake about it, the dream is to one day be able to just do wrestling full time, whether that's in a big company, whether that's just wrestling on the indies, whether maybe that's one day being somebody who's a prominent trainer for up and coming talent. Whatever the job winds up being, the hope is that I can one day do wrestling full time. But wrestling is definitely something I love. It gives me purpose. I I feel like I'm meaningful to wrestling. When it comes to the West Texas area, I am widely considered the best wrestler in my region of West Texas. There are a lot of young and up and coming guys in West Texas wrestling that look up to me. I have conversations with them regularly that ask for advice and look at me as the example of what they can do and what they want to try to do when it comes to pro wrestling. So, not only have I had a meaningful career, I continue to have a meaningful career. And as long as I continue to stay healthy, and as long as I can stay in great shape, which I'm in the best physical shape I've been in, I'm in the best shape mentally too, which is probably even more important. So, as long as I can continue to do those things, and as long as I can wake up with purpose, and I think that's important for anybody who's living their life. If you can wake up with that life purpose, you wake up with motivation and want to succeed and want to do everything. The pursuit of happiness, right? That's my favorite line in in the Constitution. As long as I am motivated to pursue that happiness, then I am living a good life. Because a good life is just simply one with purpose. It doesn't have to be my purpose or your purpose or whatever the happiness that the person is pursuing is. I think you're living a good life if you are motivated to pursue that happiness in life. And the living proof's going to keep on pursuing.
You mentioned West Texas, and this is your recent time with New Texas. And I had Kiefer on, and we talked, and he's from Abilene, so that's another part of West Texas that we're gonna
Yes.
be highlighted too. But what's nice about how you got through New Texas is through the Texas 8, and Kiefer mentioned how much of Odessa has been trying to find that, and the person who won last year, Danny Ryan, is from West Texas, so the bar was very high. And I'll set up the preface here as well. Terrell Tempo was one of those go-to guys that Kiefer reached out, and your name came up. And before we even delve about coming into the tournament, and Odessa is a different atmosphere vibe because I'm from Austin, so it's one side of Texas that's always been one of the more prominent regions, not only in the wrestling scene but all over the state. What makes Odessa such a unique city to not only wrestling, but also as a city?
Definitely different from other places that I've lived and that I've been to. So when it comes to Midland, Odessa, Texas, over here in the Permian Basin, obviously this is if anything, the the Permian Basin where I live has changed a lot over the years. I can remember being a kid growing up here in the Midland Odessa area and it being this small town with mostly dirt roads and
Mhm.
not a lot of land and not a lot of everything around. And I remember it used to be just so easy to traverse from Midland to Odessa, Texas. You know, you could easily go back and forth between those towns. And once the oil boom hit and oil work became a prominent part of the business here in the Midland and Odessa area, we've had an influx of population. So I have
Mhm.
seen a huge population growth over in the Midland and Odessa area. And what once was a small town almost in a lot of ways seems like a big city in a lot of ways.
Right.
We get traffic jams now. There's a lot of concerts and forms of entertainment that used to never come to this area now come to this area fairly regularly. And now you've got, and it's very diverse, way more diverse than it used to be. You know, you used to walk around and just see the majority of a certain type of people. But now
Right.
I'm seeing people from different countries live here, all over the world come here looking for those jobs, looking for the oil field. And now you see a lot of different families and people here. So I feel like the Odessa area has changed over the years. And most of those changes, I think, though, are good changes. It's been great getting more diverse perspectives over here, seeing the influx of population and seeing different people over here. And because I am somebody who has been here to see where it was and to see what it is now and where it's going, it's been very interesting. But growing up with these people have also grown up with my wrestling career. And
Right.
so wrestling over here, there are a lot of people that know me over here. It's funny that you say that because I was just in a gas station maybe an hour ago. And I hear, is that the living proof? And I turn around and
Wow.
a lady who's been to some of my shows came up, gave me a hug and said, "Hey, you look great. What are how have you been
Wow.
doing?" And I told her, "Yeah, man, I'm still doing the wrestling thing. I was in Vegas a couple of weeks ago and I was over here and I was over there." And she was like, "Oh man, it's so great to see you still active and still doing it, man. You keep doing what you're doing, man. You've always been an inspiration to my kids and blah, 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 blah. It was great running into you." And little interactions like that happen to be quite a bit in
Mhm.
being here in this small town. So it's great, man. There's just a level of, like, I guess you could say, camaraderie with this town. There's a level of history with this town. And to know that you are kind of one of those people that the community finds synonymous with wrestling and
Mhm.
synonymous with this area. And this is random and a little kind of, it's going to sound sad, but I promise it's positive. I was at a funeral the other day
Mhm.
and just there supporting a family member whose father had passed away. And one of the things, and I just came up there to motivate him and encourage him and just say, "I'm sorry for your dad's passing and everything like that." And he told me, and the crazy thing is I was there to just hopefully say an encouraging word to him, but he actually encouraged me and said, "Well," and he said, "Jastin, you're one of the people that I look at, man, and I can say you've actually made it in life, man. You're living your dream, man. You're going
Mhm.
out there and you're busting your tail. And I see what you post. And I saw you on TV the other day for the NWA Texas. And it's great what you're doing, man. And you're one of the people that motivates me, man. And I'm glad you came to this funeral, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. And I'm like,
Mm.
what? Like, your dad died, man. I'm trying to support you, and you're here motivating me and encouraging me. But that's just one example of the love that I get from this town, the sense of friendship and family and camaraderie I have in this town. And I wouldn't trade that for anything, man. Very special place here in West Texas.
And when the call happened, this was in Snyder, before the tournament happened. And having that envelope handed to you and being part of the Texas Eight, and knowing that you are West Texas and you are in the Midland, Odessa area, when that announcement called that you will represent West Texas, with the years that you're going through, the grind that you've been going through, just as much of these other 7 competitors in this tournament, how did that had that special place in your heart, knowing that you are representing West Texas?
Oh man, it was extremely special to me because I'm not going to beat around the bush. New Texas Pro Wrestling is one of the places that you want to be wrestling in the state of Texas. They're one of the most reputable promotions. They're one of the biggest promotions. And being a prominent wrestler there, to say that you could be noticed wrestling there would be an understatement at this point. There are several wrestlers that have come through New Texas that have a history there that have been signed. Roxanne
Right.
Perez, Brian Keith, just to name a few. There are wrestlers who have wrestled through New Texas Pro that have been ranked on the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the PWI, top 500 or whatever. There are several New Texas wrestlers that have come that have been ranked there. They've got the deal and the joint promoting that they're going to that they have begun doing with West Coast and everything like that. So New Texas Pro is one of the places that you want to be. You know, when you're looking at big promotions in Texas, New Texas is one of those upper tier, if not one of the top tier promotions. It's probably them and ROW, right? Or at
Hmm.
least those are the two in the conversation. So New Texas has always been a place that I've wanted to wrestle. And that's a place that has sort of eluded me for a while. I was able to work there on a few occasions, but I was representing my company at OSW when they were doing this big joint promotion. They were showcasing different promotions around Texas, and I got to wrestle there. But the Texas 8 is a completely different animal because it's just like you said. You get an envelope and you are selected, and only 8 wrestlers get selected. 8 out of hundreds of wrestlers who wrestle out of Texas, hundreds of wrestlers who wrestle out of this area of West Texas. They
Hmm.
choose one to represent that area, and I got chosen. So that was a big accomplishment for me. And for it to be somebody who because it's one thing to say, let me put it this way. This is a better way of putting it. It's one thing to be a wrestler who happens to be from the West Texas area, but then it's another thing entirely, though, to be a West Texas wrestler, to have been trained here, to have been to have your career born here, to have been bred here, to have held championships in all of the prominent promotions in West Texas, to have really been synonymous. When people think of wrestling in West Texas, your name is the name that comes up, not because you've just from there, but because you've done the groundwork there. You've been to those promotions. You've connected with that city. You've been to outreach programs in the cities and in the region. You have been the name that is prominent on all of those West Texas promotions. And no disrespect to Danny O'Ryan, no disrespect to anybody who is from West Texas and is a great professional wrestler. But the living proof Jastin Taylor is the only guy who has won a title at every major promotion in West Texas, who was started his career here, who was trained here, who was born here, who was bred here, and who built houses here, made promotions here, and built audiences in West Texas here. I am one of the few who can say that. And so it's a great honor that I was chosen to represent West Texas because I truly feel like I am somebody who has made an impact in West Texas wrestling. So though I was honored to be there for the Texas 8, they also chose the right guy, and it was long overdue, and it was about time somebody who has made something of himself in this area before he made it anywhere else got selected to represent the area.
What's nice too is your match with Ollie Summers. The one thing that kind of stood out to me, and the living proof flag was there, and the way I saw that flag is, and this is just my interpretation of things, you're carrying that flag of not only the living proof of what you're doing, but you're carrying so much in West Texas that you waved it around so much that underneath that living proof flag is that West Texas. You are that representative, and knowing that that entire region has your back, and you just wave that. I took photos that day, and you waving that flag is just symbolic to not only what you're doing in your career, but also like the region that you're representing during that time.
I totally agree with you. And it makes me happy to hear you say that, Emmanuel, because that's exactly what it is. You know, the flag for me is obviously it says my name on it, but don't mistake it as just a branding thing or just a thing that has my name on it. It is very synonymous with the responsibility that I carry to represent this area, to represent myself. But it's also a symbol, man. You know, a flag is supposed to be something that you carry with pride, right? And it represents who you are. It's just like the state of Texas flag, right? That flag means something to us. That's part of who we are and our identity and our history. And that flag for me is the same thing for me. It's who I am. It's a symbol of what I represent. It has the name, the living proof on it, but at the same time, every time I go to the ring with that flag, I wave it for everybody to see. Maybe a lucky little fan in the crowd gets a miniature flag that he can wave with me. But the last thing I do with that flag is I plant it in the center of that ring. And that's
Mm-hmm.
synonymous too, because when I step into that ring, that is my ring. That is my sanctuary. That is my love. That is my stage. And I am about to perform for these people. And I want them to know that when I perform, you are really seeing somebody whose dream was to pro wrestle and whose purpose is to pro wrestle. So I carry that flag with pride and I carry that symbol everywhere I go.
What's nice about that match, and it started off with technicals, and there was a line that stuck to me. This is one of those moments within that tournament, and you literally said, okay, I can see how you wrestle, but I want to see you fight. And it's like the gear shifted into something that is purely technical to now it's a brawl. And it's like, well, brawl in a sense of within a wrestling match, not like an actual shoot fight, but to know that the shift in character, the shift in the entire match, that's what caught my attention with this match. And there's other ones too, so don't knock me out of context that this is the match of the night. So, but to know that the dynamics of that entire match, and I'll ask this too because I was thinking about it. You've had Matt Hardy as that person giving, who gave advice to you, and that post with Ollie, and seeing this generation of wrestlers, was that full circle for you in your career that you are still grinding, but now you have this imparting wisdom and advice that you can give someone who's still figuring out the grind as much as you do?
Oh, definitely. Yes, yes. And Ollie Summers, just quickly to give him a shout out. I love that match. It was a great match, and I couldn't have thought of a better way to return to New Texas Pro and show them what I could do. That match had a little bit of everything. The physicality that you're talking about, there was great athleticism in the match. And there were fans that told me that was one of their favorite matches that day,
That's
which
it.
is great because that was a daunting task going in there against a hometown guy. I mean, he is Austin, Texas. So many people were yelling, Ollie, Ollie, Ollie. And I'm looking around going, oh man, I'm in hostile territory. But what was so awesome is there are points in that match where the crowd was chanting both these guys. There were
Yep.
parts in that match
Yes. That's
where
what. Yeah.
yeah, and there were parts in that match where we both just got an ovation just for the athleticism that we were showcasing. And I won over some of that crowd, but not so much over him, but I was able to earn their respect because they
Mhm.
respect Ali so much. So I am so, so proud of that match and just some of the moments that we were able to create in that. And yes, you're absolutely right. Like after that match, talking to Ali and him saying, man, you're one of the people that I wanted to wrestle for a long time. And I'm glad I got to do this with you. And you're one of those guys that we look at. And, you know, he's way over here in Austin, Texas. I'm like, really? Me? Like, I'm one of the guys that you look at, and I'm one of the people that you wanted to wrestle. And it's so cool to hear that because sometimes you think that just because you're not around, you wonder if you are making an impact or if guys do respect you or do other areas in Texas, do they even think about you? And like him saying that, you mentioning Terrell Tempo, who brought my name up when it came to this, me getting selected for it, it all just motivates and encourages me, man, that man, maybe I do. Maybe I am making a more of an impact than I think. Maybe I mean more to this thing that I think on those nights where you sometimes wonder if you mean anything at all. So it was meaningful to talk to him. It was meaningful to hear that from him. And he told me that he learned a lot from that match about just physicality and going toe to toe with somebody and being able to bring that hard hitting West
Yep.
Texas style to the ring. And Ali, for his credit, he matched me for every single moment of athleticism and physicality. And I was glad I was able to show him that side of him exists too. And that's what Matt Hardy did for me. Back to what you said, full circle. He showed me that there was a side of me that existed that I didn't know I had. And hopefully I was able to show to Ali that there's a side of him, that grittier side that he has in him as well.
Oh man, I wish we could talk for like a few more hours. And it's like,
Me too,
I
man.
will.
We're flowing here.
I
We
was
are
so
really flowing.
we're like immersed in conversation. But I think one of the more nicer things about that too is to have this experience. Like, what would you summarize your time within the Texas 8?
Man, I would just say, if anything, it was great. It was a wonderful experience. I I had a great match. I made an impact in that locker room. I got to talk to those guys and
Mhm.
found out that many of them said the same thing that I just uttered not too a few minutes ago. It's about time you were back here, man. It's great to see you back here. You deserve to be back here, and we want to see you here more. So, not only was it a great experience, but it's the kind of experience where you leave even more hungry, even more with the chip on your shoulder, even more to show them that, hey, man, I'm not a one match guy. I'm not just a Texas A guy. I can come back there anytime and I can have a banger. I need to be on there more regularly. I want to be one of the people going up against one call Manders, going up against
Ooh.
guys like Danny O'Ryan. I want to be one of those guys on New Texas flyers and posters and match graphics, having matches against some of the best that they have to offer. I want to be one of those guys that they go, hey, West Coast wants to exchange some talent. Jastin Taylor, living proof. Can you bring the flag to West Coast? I want to be one of those guys. So, man, so even though the Texas 8 was a great experience, this is only the beginning for me, man. It has to be only the beginning for me. And I want to make more out of it. And I'm motivated as hell to do so.
Wow. Well, we're at the tail end, and I always end this conversation. Thank you for having you on, Jastin. And even though we had that short exchange at the Texas 8 and talking and telling your story has been such, it's really eye opening and motivating. But you mentioned giving this advice and hanging out with all of these guys in the locker room. And picture yourself as that adolescent you. And if you hung out with him for a day, with the life that you have and the career that you've done, whether it's in the professional realm or in wrestling, what would that younger version of you feel like seeing what you've done in your life lately?
Wow. Well, I'll say this. The right now, I can honestly say that I am living the best years of my life because I'm living a life with purpose. And when I was a younger kid, I spent a lot of time trying to do the impossible thing of just trying to please everyone. I I was that kid that didn't want to disappoint anybody. I was trying to please, whether it was pleasing family, whether it was pleasing teachers, whether it was, doesn't really matter who it was. I was that kid that thought that I could make everybody happy. And and I was doing that at the expense of my own happiness, not
Mm.
really getting in tune with the things that I wanted or the things that I needed. And that really led to a severe lack of confidence. And, I really wasn't living my life in a way to where I was happy because I just mistakenly thought that pleasing everybody else was the way. So if the Jastin Taylor now could go back and talk or show that adolescent Jastin what he would become, I think the adolescent Jastin would be happy to know that the Jastin Taylor today is happy. He truly
Mm.
lives life for himself. He truly wakes up and has purpose in his life. And this is a happiness that nobody can ever take away from him because I literally went out there and have done the very thing that I loved and that I fell in love with as a kid. And I can say I actually got to do that. I've got to rub elbows with people who were my heroes on TV. I've gotten to perform in the ring with some of those people. And the Jastin Taylor today, who's in great shape and full of confidence and just happy to be alive and happy to be living his dream, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that journey that little kid and those hardships that little kid had to go through to discover and find himself. So if anything, if I could look at that kid now, I would say, thank you, man. Thank you for for living the hard part. Thank you for persevering. Thank you for taking the journey that you did because I wouldn't have the strength that I do today if it wasn't for the journey that you took.
If you want, and I think you kind of gave it away, but if any advice that you would give to that younger Jastin, what would that be?
Oh, it would definitely be, man. You've got to find yourself and find that happiness for you. But it all starts with understanding who you are and embracing who you are and not be afraid of who you are and what you want out of your life and what you want to be and what you want to represent. That is the hardest part of this life journey, is just simply finding and understanding yourself. But once you do, be proud of who you are. Be proud of what you are, and wake up each day just trying to pursue that, trying to pursue you, trying to be you, and trying to embody what it is you want out of life. That's the best advice I could give to young Jastin or anybody out there who's trying to make sense of this thing we call life. That's what's made sense to me.
Man, can we do like 2 hours? We're pushing
Man.
But this is the end of our conversation. Man, I want to push more, but it's like, oh, look at the time. But anyways, for those who are watching here on YouTube, and if you've gone far enough and got to know Jastin's story here on this episode, and if you have any other interviews that you would like to see here as a viewer, don't forget to just subscribe. There are many talents here in Texas that have their stories shared here on this podcast or in these interviews, whether it's Jastin or anyone in between. And if you have subscribed, you know the drill. Comment what you think of this episode is. Like this episode if you think that Jastin's story is motivating in any way, shape, or form, and what you do. Share it here to hear his story among and many others who are in the independent wrestling business here, whether it's in Texas or some other state. And yeah, that's it. We'll sign off here. And thank you so much for watching. And we'll be on to the next one.